The post-war lives and journeys of leading Nazi and SS figures are complicated. The famous Nuremberg trials brought many to account, yet many escaped justice, as seen in Nazi colonies around the globe. Welcome to Bizarre History. Today we examine Kurt Meyer, the SS commander fated for the death penalty, yet managed to escape. Meyer's war record is something to behold. As a soldier and servant of the Nazi forces, he shows attendance to a litany of seminal battles and comes out rewarded. He was part of the invasion of Poland in an anti-tank division. He was also a participant in the Battle of France and earned an Iron Cross for his efforts. In 1941, Meyer was part of the German efforts to invade Greece and Yugoslavia. As part of the counter-attacking Nazi forces that overwhelmed Allied forces into retreat, Meyer earned his Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. Yet for all his military prowess, Meyer's story contends a dark side that is consistent throughout his military career. During the invasion of Poland, records state that Meyer openly ordered the murder of some 50 Polish Jews near Moldlin. This is an allegation, though the platoon commander who refused the order was court-martialed, and he declared as much. When Operation Barbarossa came to pass in 1941, Meyer's unit was engaged and displayed just as much propensity for horror. The LSSAH that Meyer was a leader of soon developed a nasty reputation for ordering mass killings of civilians and razing entire villages to the ground. In Rovno, now Oblast, Ukraine, Meyer's unit is documented killing around 20 children, women, and the elderly. When Meyer was heading his unit over the Third Battle of Kharkiv, the unit was responsible for an infamous episode at Yefremovkov. According to the testimony of SS men after the war, in response to Russian resistance around the village, all civilians were shot dead, and the village was burnt to its foundations. The death toll is around 900 innocent people, including an instance of over 200 buried alive in a church. Disturbingly, around this period, Meyer was further rewarded with the Gold German Cross and was annotated as audacious. Meyer's leadership and reputation followed him to the very tail end of the war. His audaciousness did him no favors in the face of Operation Overlord, 1944. It's understood Meyer utterly underestimated the scale of the Allied effort taking place on the beaches of France. He was dismissive of the Allies, declaring them little fishes, and commanded his unit to counterattack the mass offensive. This only led to mass casualties for Meyer's men, and they were soon in retreat. Within a month, however, Meyer's forces were a severely weakened unit. Come the 4th of July 1944, Meyer's forces were on continual retreat and were suffering a 60% rate of casualty. Falling back to the Follier's pocket, Meyer's men were down to as few as 1,500 and were increasingly encircled. Soon wounded, Meyer was able to escape to Belgium across the Seine, like many of the German forces. Meyer soon fled and hid in a barn with his driver to escape American forces. However, within a day of setting up an HQ in Belgium, he was found and tipped off to the Belgian resistance and handed over to the Americans on September 7th. Born in Jerksheim of Lower Saxony, Germany in 1910, Kurt Meyer showed political hunger at a young age. At 15 years old, he joined the Hitler Youth and showed an avid following of Nazism. Only 5 years later, Meyer had become a member of the full-fledged Nazi Party. A year later, Meyer joined the SS in 1931. Meyer was making waves within the ranks of the Nazis, or at least made a popular figure. Later that year, Meyer was a guest at the wedding of Joseph Goebbels. Significantly, in May 1934, Meyer was moved up to the 1st Panzer Division of the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler. Along with the other units, this would soon be evolved into the Waffen SS. A powerful and relied-upon military unit for the Nazis, Meyer would have been involved in some of the most significant formations of World War II. Meyer's time as a prisoner of war initially began in Compiègne, France, where he recovered from the brutalization he was inflicted on by American soldiers. It is documented he tried to keep his SS identity under wraps in France, but it was soon revealed. His transfer to the POW camp in Trent Park, England, was far more consequential for Kurt Meyer. There he was prisoner alongside other Nazi POWs of high ranks, and his conversations were being secretly recorded by the British. He stated he could only give his heart once in life. Meyer remained a POW until December 1945, when, in Aurich, Germany, he was tried for war crimes. Meyer faced 5 charges, and they were for acts during the previous year of 1944. Of the 5 charges, 4 of them were for killing prisoners of war. All charges, importantly, were for actions his troops had committed under his command. Amazingly, Meyer was found guilty of 3 of the 5 charges, but acquitted of 2. Meyer was not found guilty of the direct ordering of murders, but of indirectly supporting them. Though the death penalty was expected to be the outcome, a war trial regulation threw the entire sentence into other hands. The regulation in question meant the sentence had to be reviewed by essentially the most senior figure in the Allied forces relevant. This duty fell to Christopher Vaux, who was the commander of the Canadian forces on the continent. The legality of the command of responsibility came into play, and this trial is one of the premier examples of its usage. The debate was finalized with their conclusion that the death penalty could only be appropriate if the killings were from direct action or lack of action from the commander. Tellingly, Vaux admitted that he had not encountered Allied generals who hadn't, at one point or another, dealt with prisoners of war as unwanted excess. Meyer was granted life imprisonment instead of the death sentence. There was an immediate uproar from the East, with reports Meyer could be tried by the Soviet Union for his acts on the Eastern Front. This didn't come to pass. Meyer was soon sent to Canada to begin his sentence in April 1946. Serving in the Dorchester Penitentiary in New Brunswick, Meyer spent 5 years working in the library and learning the English language. Meyer made a petition for release from his sentence in 1950. Canada, along with other Western nations, was looking for German favor in countering Soviet aggression in Europe. The West German government was looking to release German war criminals from Allied prisons, and so Meyer was released to a British military prison in West Germany. On the 7th of September 1954, Meyer was released on a shortened sentence and off the back of good behavior. Soon after his release from prison, Meyer began a mangled path of joining a SS veterans denialist organization called the HIAG. Meyer had told the press on his release that nationalism was over and a united Europe was the only future, but his alignment with the former SS veterans said otherwise. Around this time, he released his memoir, Grenadier, in 1957, which ultimately served as a vehicle to glorify SS actions and distance them from any Nazi atrocity. Despite evidence of the HIAG attracting and being afloat with the many far-right affiliates, he pined for a more clean public image. This included meeting with the Center Party German politicians at the time. Ultimately, Meyer, whether confronted with the actions of the group, be it atrocity or the past or rhetoric at the time, was denialist and quick to shift the blame. Meyer spends the last chapter of his life in illness. He died in December 1961. His funeral attracted around 15,000 attendees, and his medals were carried aloft behind the casket. If you want more of history's most repugnant figures, hit subscribe, like, and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.